Welcome. There was a recent Saturday Night Live skit where the cast goes to visit a psychic, and she starts talking about all of these things that will be happening in the very near future, including having to wash off a Dorito bag or use an adult coloring book because there's no concerts or live music. And they're all looking at her like she's insane. And it kind of made me think about the topic that we're discussing today. Let's imagine you're a creative lead, like many of the people on this call, and you were told only a few months ago that, you know what, you're not going to get to meet in person anymore. Wouldn't you think that was nuts? So, lo and behold, here we are today. And fortunately, there's been a lot of creative breakthroughs that have happened during this moment. There's been a lot of new learnings. There's been a lot of old learnings that we kind of threw out the window or adapted or evolved. And many of them kind of needed to be evolved. And alas, here we are. So today we're going to dig into all of that stuff, and we're going to get some practical advice. We're going to get some real learnings from this really wonderful group. Really happy to have everybody here today. So we're going to go around the horn. If everybody wants to give me a little wave when I announce you. So we have Matt McDonald, who's Chief Creative Officer at Omnicom for AT&T, at BBDO specifically. Welcome, Matt. I have Renato Fernandez, who's Chief Creative Officer at TBWA Chiat Day, Los Angeles. Welcome. I have Thaz Nasimuddin, there you go, Chief Executive Officer of Omelet. Welcome. And Alan Porter, who's the Director of Product Marketing at Nuxeo. So welcome. This is really an interesting topic, and we had a pre-conference chat where we really dug into a lot of stuff, and it's really amazing that this kind of shared experience we've all gone through. Renato, tell me a little bit about kind of where we are today and how this kind of relates to where we were. What was it? 7 months ago, 8 months ago, 9 months ago? Less than a year.
Yeah, it's crazy. Thank you for having us, Kenneth. It's amazing to be part of this group in this panel and debate a little bit about what's going on. It has been an incredibly different year compared to the years we had before. And I think I use this analogy that we are in this time machine. This crisis and this virus, it catapulted this industry 10 years ahead of time. All the transformation that happen in this industry are really caused by something that is beyond our control. We are, in some senses, advertising agencies and clients, they're complacent with the realities they're living on. They're used to what the status quo, and they're not willing to change. Or the change is not really, really big. We've been talking about advertising is dying for so many years. And for the first time, the changes that are happening in this industry are really incremental. So although it's a terrible year for it to live on, I'm super optimistic about what the future entails. The whole transformation that happened, the way we work, working from home, it's a demonstration that it's possible to change, and the change is not as bad as we thought.
Great. I mean, Matt, if I were to come to you now, if there's one thing that's really changed about the collaborative structure, the creative structure, what's one of the biggest changes you've seen and how you've kind of worked with it, around it, and made your teams even better?
I think, for us, we've been kind of working remotely, like at least with what I do. I've been working remotely with our office in Atlanta, our office in Los Angeles and Dallas for years. So fortunately, we were already doing this, and I was able to jump into it pretty well. And our teams were used to it. We've actually, if anything, we've only gotten better at it. We've figured out our shorthand to sort of collaborate and to have honest conversations about the work, and not be so polite, and to do the things that we would do in person. But I still think there is that sort of serendipity that's still missing. If I were to look at the last 6 to 9 months, there are those serendipitous moments that come from hallway conversations, that come from an idea that sparks off just a basic conversation. And because those things aren't happening, everything is structured in Zoom calls. You have to work harder to get to some of the best insights and the best work. And so I think we're still working on that. We're still working through that, and we're not quite there yet. So, if I were to just be honest about our process, I think there's a way to go. But we're at least recognizing, what is this good for and what is it not good for? And, what are those moments when people need to come together physically and when do they not?
Great. Daz, what are some of the challenges that you've seen and conquered, or in the process of conquering?
I think, the process of conquering is really important because I think if anyone who's in a leadership role right now knows all of this is so iterative. Every day, every month, I feel like we're getting a little bit better from a communication perspective, from how quickly we make decisions. One of the things that I think is the most kind of heartwarming of all of it is it's allowed us to sort of make decisions faster. At least for us, it's really allowed us to say, what do we have to lose? We'd been talking about opening an office in Portugal for almost 18 months. And by the time we all became little squares on a box, on the bigger box, it all of a sudden felt like a much less risky proposition to be able to go out and try that and try to access new talent and try to be a part of something a bit different, and really take those risks. So I think there are inherent challenges to all of this. I think it's putting there's a lot more stress and kind of tax has been put on our systems that we've ever seen before. But I think that with that, we as leaders are also able to make decisions faster purely out of necessity and being able to actually deliver the things that we need to deliver.
Great, great. Alan, when your clients are coming to you, what are you hearing? What are you seeing?
One of the things that we're really seeing, and I really believe it's part of the, if you like, the zeitgeist of the creative community, is the creative community is getting creative about the process. To the point that was made earlier, I think there was a steady acceptance of the way things were, and everything was very reactive. A lot of folks were just doing stuff because they were being asked to do it. They were having a request-driven process, if you like, that somebody needed a shoot, or they needed this for a campaign, or this for an advertising campaign. We're seeing people now take a much more strategy-based view of things. They're actually looking at what they need to do from the business rather than just reacting, and taking a step back and applying their creative thoughts and processes to their overall business needs and the business process as well as the creative process. And in fact, driving a lot more value. We're actually seeing a lot more people, particularly sort of senior executives and stuff, actually start to realize the value of having things like digital asset management, and having, the fact that they can actually get online from their home office and find stuff and use it and realize the assets that they've got across the organization. And that content really is, and the rich media assets that make up content has become the interface with the customer today. You can't rely on people coming into a brick and mortar store anymore, or, so, they're looking at rich media assets and how they're delivering those online, and they're actually driving a lot more business value from what they've already got, and taking that step back and looking at what they've got and how can they use that creatively.
Great, great. I mean, from a practical example, when you're looking to get things done with your teams, what's something that you've learned that was kind of unexpected, that, has really, that's something that you're going to take with you as we move forward from this portal of time, from what was to what is now and what will be. And I guess sticking with the same cadence, I'll come to Renato.
Yeah, it's crazy. When we got into this lockdown, the first feeling was desperation. How we can survive? First, because clients were entertaining like fee reductions, we are cutting personnel. How are we gonna be creative in that situation? But before talking about the teams, the first thing I noticed is that clients, they were relying more on agencies than ever before, because in this crisis, a life and death crisis, and they are really honing into our help and our ability to make it happen. But then with the teams, I was absolutely concerned because, creative is a process, it's the serendipity that Matt was mentioning that happened. You need the place, the physical presence for the magic to happen. And I was really concerned in our ability to do that. But what happened is that everybody learned super fast to adapt to the reality. And they are finding better usage of their time. So everybody is more present at their houses, and they're not dropping the ball at the agency. I, for myself, I'm learning how to cook. I'm walking the dog 2 times a day. I'm more helpful. I'm washing the dishes at home. So my wife is loving the new Renato, but I'm not in any sense less reliable in the agency. And I'm finding the same reality with the teams. So what we realize is that creative teams are way more independent than I thought. I have a team that is now located in Utah. And if I didn't know they were in Utah, it didn't change a thing. They're delivering the same quality of work. Everybody needs to be like really more responsible with the timing and the meetings. That's something that you don't have the wiggle room that you had before, showing up a little bit late. Everybody's trying to be more responsible to that. But for me, the big lesson is that we adapt to new realities. And there's something I was super afraid of. You know, when you build an agency, you believe that the culture is the physical space. And in a sense, it is. But it can be way more than that if you find ways to bring the culture to other spaces like we have now in Zooms and other those calls.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's definitely a connection and a saving of time that happens. You know, Matt, you know, tell us a little bit about what you're seeing with your teams that, you know, maybe you didn't expect.
Well, I think we're way more clued into everyone's mental and physical health than before, and I think that that's something that's definitely going to continue afterwards. And it wasn't just the pandemic. I think you know the everything that happened this summer with George Floyd. You know, there was a moment where at BBDO we realized that we had to call everyone in the agency and just check in on how people were doing. And you know, like there's hundreds of people. Like, you know, like we normally you would walk the halls and see people, and you get the sense if something wasn't going well for someone. And, you know, I think that checking in and sort of making sure that everyone is mentally doing okay with everything and physically, you know, given that everyone's physical health is top of mind lately, you know, that's something that's got to be part of like every single day moving forward. I had a conversation with somebody who had just joined the agency from Atlanta, Georgia, in New York. And he joined and accepted the offer right before we went into lockdown. So he ended up never leaving Atlanta, still hasn't been to the office in New York. And he was like, I don't really know how I fit in with this team. I really don't know how I fit in with everyone else. I don't really know the culture. Whereas I've been there for 6 years and we all get along great and we think everything is fine. We just jump into Zoom meetings and you know, we crack the same jokes, you know, we've got the same relationships. For somebody new, it's a completely different story. And I think as we navigate this world moving forward, hopefully once we're all vaccinated, but still working a bit from home and working a little bit in the office, the one thing we have to figure out is like, what's the work experience going to be for somebody that's new, for somebody that doesn't necessarily have a house, you know, and, you know, spare bedrooms where they can camp out for 9 months, you know, what's that experience going to be like? And what's the office experience for them? Because it's going to be different for different people based on the life stage that you're at. And, you know, and so I think that just how we work through that, it's going to mean that we're going to have to know a lot more about our people, be a lot more like forthcoming about where we are mentally, physically, you know, and all of that as we move forward.
Man, it's a great point. I think that is one of the main concerns I have with the whole lockdown. You know, there's so much positive in what we're learning, staying home, but there is probably the number one reason I think we should, to some capacity, go back to the office, because we need to curate the new generation. And it's really hard to imagine they're going to be like fully prepared to take over this industry by just learning everything from home. That proximity. I remember first time I came to a big agency, I was like an awards book moving around me, a lot of famous people that I knew by studying them, and had a chance to interact with them, and just like having a coffee with somebody and pick their brain here and there and show a piece of work and ask for their opinion. That is something that in the reality we're living on is a little bit tough. We have at the agency one thing that twice a week, just have meetings there for nothing, just to chat. Talk about what you're watching, what you're seeing, just chit chat. And they're not big meetings. They're always like small groups of 6 people tops, because if it's a bigger group, everybody goes quiet. So this is a way for us to keep a little bit of that, mimic a little bit of that reality. And I think it's so important, this shared culture that makes an agency what it is.
I love that.
So we've done pretty much the same thing with virtual coffee breaks, like once a week, and making sure it's people we don't normally work with. So we're actually reaching out to new people across and getting to know each other. And one of the interesting things we found was we were 60% remote, and then we switched to 100% remote very quickly. But we realized there was sort of 2 groups. There was the people who worked in the office and the people who were used to working from home. and there was that sort of gap. So just setting up, like everybody in the US gets together on a Zoom call once every 2 weeks, and we just all check in. And we've actually got to know more people now across the organization than we did when we were in the more traditional environment. So using the technology has actually helped foster and build even greater teamwork, I think. But we're also trying to recreate those hallway conversations with the virtual coffee meetups, like once a week or something like that, with a group of like 3 people, but that's something you've got to put the process in and manage it and make sure that you're bringing those new people into those conversations as well. But it's been an interesting experience.
Yeah, I would say pre-pandemic, a lot of people would say that most meetings were about nothing. But now we're actually making meetings about nothing, so we can have moments to kind of relax and breathe and stuff like that. So taking this learning and moving forward, I mean, Thaz, I know your agency is big on culture as well. Like, what are some of the learnings that you've taken, like having these human moments, hanging out is actually what it kind of sounds like. What are some of the things that you're doing?
We've done several like extra initiatives, whether it's giving all of our folks a day off to make sure they get outside for the day, and just kind of get out of your screens and really kind of, again, just experience the world in whatever safe ways we possibly can. But I think one of the big lessons that we've learned is really about making sure that the meetings that we do have are meaningful. And so it's not the same voices that are speaking up. I think if anything, this could potentially give us the best way of looking at everyone on a grid and making sure that voices are amplified, that maybe sometimes are quite quiet, and really trying to create a space that's safe for everyone to be able to speak up. And I think these are really difficult times for, folks who aren't as extroverted or as naturally inclined to speak up in this kind of setting. So finding ways and spaces to make that special and to make those exceptions and make it, again, if we've learned nothing from this summer, we have really increased our focus on ensuring that all voices are heard, because that's the best thing, that's the most important thing we can do as an agency today. And I think that's where, for us, whether it's having conversation moderators, we also do things like community agreements. So we have a set of agreements that the entire agency has agreed to. Every time we open a meeting, we make sure that we are reminded of what our community agreements are and how we allow voices to speak up the way that they need to, and allow for our more senior folks to give space for those who aren't as senior. Right,
definitely. So Matt, I'm gonna bring this one to you. So when it comes to actually getting work done, producing the work, taking the place of where we're all together, making these things happen. What are some of the best practices that you've seen come up with that you're going to hold on to and nurture moving forward?
Well, so I sort of live in a collaborative keynote deck 24/7. So I mean, like, that's kind of where I don't think that's anything new for a lot of people. But I think that when we started this whole thing off, when we would produce something, particularly if we were producing film or video, we would be we would do very simple shoots, which we would remote into. And slowly but surely, we've been sort of upping the ambition level, sort of taking on more complex jobs. We've been able to accomplish more. And I think that, we're getting it down to the point where we can do some really ambitious things and not have to be there physically. And we may not go back to a world where you have these large teams of people from the agency traveling and sort of making everything, because I think we've discovered what we can do remotely is just as powerful. Not always, but sometimes. And it's going to be really hard for, I think, the procurement people of the world to go through and allow those line items to come back. So I think we should get really used to working in this environment and become really adept at it, because I just don't see it coming back anytime soon.
And I think you were the one who said earlier when we were chatting about how there had to be more rigor before you arrived on to produce what you were working on, and the sort of the value of prepping or preparing that we kind of took for granted when we were doing this sort of thing.
Yeah, when you're producing work, normally the PPM is that that meeting where you see and organize and get all the cogs fixed. And normally that's what happened. You're traveling to wherever you're filming, and then where magic happened. But now, because of COVID, we need to be buttoned up before that. So there's a lot of rigor now in preparation to PPM, because we have no much control of like the physicality of a presence there. So people need to be more invested in the whole process. They cannot be opting out before and then jumping in the PPM. So I feel my team's way more involved in this process. The other thing that we learn when you're doing production is that I did this my whole life, and my teams are telling the same to me now in these times of lockdown. One amazing thing when they're producing stuff is that you have the sidebar conversations. You are in the set, you're filming, you have the client, you have the crew, you have your creative team, and you're watching everybody seeing the same. But so many times you want to debate about something that you're ruminating, you're baking something. You're not sure if this is great. You don't know if your idea is the best idea to present. And the problem is, when you say this in front of everybody, it's so overwhelming. It's so easy for you to feel overruled and feel that your opinion is not going to count. So when we have our production sessions, we normally have a second or third chain of communication, another Zoom call or like a messaging connection. I have them with my client, with my team, and with the director. So I can bounce ideas one to the other and just make sure the ideas are good enough to present to the bigger group, like in any production day. And this is increasing our ability to make our output, the product, better.
I think that's the one thing everybody knows at any time, like thanks to Zoom and everything else, people are talking about you via text in some other medium. There's a sidebar conversation happening about everything all the time. Everybody is subtexting everything. So our paranoia levels are going to start going up.
Well, actually, and Matt, you had mentioned that's why humor is more important, right? You have to
Totally. Yeah. No, there's nothing worse than a deadly Zoom. I mean, just for God's sake. I mean, we spend our lives on these cameras enough as it is, to the point where I just have this huge complex about the shape of my face and how it changes over time. And, you know, like, I think like people who have senses of humor, people who know how to sort of like, you know, like sort of lighten the mood, insert the joke at the right moment. And I just like it's desperately needed, you know, because there's just something about this medium that does make it physically and mentally more exhausting. You know, the longer you do it, you spend the entire day doing it. It is like, I think there's scientific research that proves that it is pretty taxing. And, you know, the people who can sort of make these meetings fun, you know, as fun as they can be, they're important.
It's funny. Sorry, one of my creatives, Theo Hardy, my creative leaders, he was in this meeting. It was a little bit boring meeting. And then when he was his turn to talk, he got a keyboard and started to play, and he was a crooner. And man, that broke the whole thing. Everybody was crack laughing and changed the whole atmosphere. And we miss that, you know, being predictable. In all those sessions, everybody's trying to be buttoned up and trying to be perfect. And that is the imperfections what makes us special and makes us alive.
Totally.
So at the end of the session, we can all sing in 5-part harmony as an outro. But, you know, the viewers at home, you're going to have to wait for that. But before we get there, Laz, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about like the brass tacks of getting some of these things done. You had mentioned earlier that like just being able to find things or control your stuff is kind of important now.
And it's funny because I think from an infrastructure perspective, particularly when you're an independent, there's a lot of things that you sort of duct tape together, hope for the best, and just wait until it's like when it's broken, we will just put another piece of duct tape over. But things like digital asset management and how we tag things and how we save things and how easy or difficult it is to bring those back into kind of our everyday work streams. It's different now. And I think, again, these are things that we've been talking about for years and years. And it's sort of been we'll do it. As soon as this other thing happens, we'll do it. And now this moment has really allowed us to intensify our decision-making process and be like, you know what, time is now. No one is waiting for us to get this stuff done. So we need to make these things happen quickly.
Yeah, yeah. Alan, in that vein, what are you hearing? What are some best practices or, stories, success stories you've heard from your clients in terms of like, okay, now we're doing this. This is working. This is happening. We have to do it.
It goes to, I think what Thaz was just saying about really thinking about what you've got and doing it. It's not very sexy, but the stuff like, figuring out what your taxonomy is, what the metadata is, how you're going to tag it, where you're going to put stuff, is it going to be in a digital asset management system? Do you already have multiple digital asset management systems? How do you link them together? How do you find stuff across the enterprise? And going back to what I mentioned earlier, where we're finding a lot of our clients are having real success is looking at what they've already got and using things like artificial intelligence, machine learning to go through that and actually tag a lot of their assets in the digital asset management system with what they need for their business. So they can go and find stuff and pull stuff together. We found an increasing number of companies starting to realize that they're coming up to specific anniversaries, like a 50th anniversary or a 90th anniversary, and doing campaigns around that and going back into their archives. We have a cosmetics company who have a long deceased, very famous, iconic movie star ads from the 1960s that they did a campaign, created it, put it in a filing cabinet somewhere and forgot about it. And it's like they're now mining that vein of archive stuff to create new campaigns. So, a lot of, as I said, just thinking about what you've got, looking at it and putting the right boring library, fellow librarians will hate me for that, but, doing that grunt work up front actually makes it a lot more useful and turns those assets into way more of a business asset and allows you to actually go find it and use it in new ways. And we're finding the folks who are looking at what they've already got from a new perspective are being really successful with it.
Great. So I'm going to ask a couple more questions, and then I'm going to ask everybody on the panel to give the folks at home or wherever they may be, one sort of actionable insight that they may be able to take and learn from and use, today, tomorrow, and in the future. Before we get there, looking back to the past, which is like 9 months ago, or we could say even, there's a lot of problems that were built into the creative structure and collaboration process, even before this night to now, that we knew was there and we kind of ignored. And I think kind of comes back to the beginning. What are some things that you don't see yourself going back to? What are some things that you're like, okay, that just didn't work. This is what we need to do now. Is there something that you really learned from that you're kind of like, oh, I never even thought that was totally the wrong thing? And I'll just throw that out to the group rather than put somebody on the spot. I see.
Well, I'll say this.
Thoughts.
It's not that I don't, but that I do more. I think this process, because we're distant, we're trying to get close. And this is forcing a proximity with strategy, account, with all department liaison and with the client. So today I have way more permission to reach out to my client than I had before. Before you're waiting for those moments, the tent poles, the moments you are supposed to talk to clients. But now it's the touch base is so more common because of the new reality that you're finding yourself the opportunity to reach out way more to clients. Same inter-department. I have now a junior strategist working directly with creative teams. They are not supposed to be a team. Some cases you have teams, strategy and creative teams, but this is completely different. They are owning their own hubs and they're connecting more. We have the social creatives, we have the content creatives. They're all connecting all the time because of this reality. And it's funny that we had to be apart to learn how to be close. So one thing that I do not want to lose is this ability to share everything that we do, that we are learning in this reality. So that's something that I definitely want to keep for the future.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. We've seen a lot of creative teams now getting involved with product teams and things like even like material design right at the beginning of a product design system, getting creative people involved in that all the way through looking at how the creative is going to be used on their packaging and how it's going to be used on the website, and becoming sort of central to the overall digital content supply chain, if you like, across the enterprise. And we're seeing a lot of creatives really being the center of that and linking those across those former functional boundaries, which seem to have sort of fallen or at least crumbling as we're actually all more having to work together.
You know, the one thing that I think is going to be massive is just like the physical capital and the physical energy we used to expend to meet physically. The amount, like, so the amount of time that we flew across the country for a 1 hour meeting, just what that was doing to the environment, what that was doing, like, to like sort of the bottom line. I think all of that has been completely upended, and I just don't see that changing. Like, I think that the way that we're doing it now, like, is the way moving forward. And so those moments that we do come together are going to be, you know, fewer, further between, but more meaningful and more important. Like when you do decide to get together with a client, or when you get together like to produce something physically, that's going to be something of great value and great worth, because you know, we won't just spend money like we used to travel.
Yeah, and I would say,
Oh,
sorry, one more thing that I would say, sorry, Ken, on that point, that for me it's super important. I think I talk about this time machine that this COVID it's being for us. And it plays out to our care with the environment, like we're not traveling much, we're not hurting the environment because we're not getting so many planes. But at the same time, I'm optimistic that diversity will be a clear transformation in this industry in the future. A lot of people lost their jobs. The industry needs more people. And I hope we are using this time to bring the new generation, that's a more diverse generation, to this industry. Again, the diversity, it was like a joke, to be honest, in this industry. It was like, okay, I'm giving you a few spots here and there, and that's it. I think transformation will truly happen when diversity becomes so natural that we don't need to talk about that anymore. And we all need to do our part. So for once, I'm doing one thing that every Wednesday, I'm seeing Portfolio of Young Talent is a project that I call Portfolio Mornings. And I'm doing this for the last 5 months. I'm not stopping. I'm trying to get talent, and I'm offering to my agency and people that I know talent that is breakthrough, only diverse talent. Because it's our job to bring an influx of badass, diverse talent to this industry. That will produce transformation. I don't believe we none of us are people that are going to change this industry. We are going to hire the people that will change this industry. And I think we need to hire wisely.
absolutely. Before we go to the recap, Thaz, anything you'd like to add there? I know we had talked a little bit earlier about, you know, speed and just just how things have changed in terms of that.
Yeah, I think the most, I mean, this is the thing, to everything we've already talked about, just the idea of efficiency and accountability, and just how much more important that's become to all of us. When we think about every late night review that we would have, or how we would be structuring our meetings, and everyone's in the office until 4 a.m. People are still working until all hours of the night a lot of the time, but I think just the realities of the efficiencies that we can get when we are out of that pressure that we felt in the room, that we needed to be there. And you know, all of us who've been in the industry for a while, like, there was a badge of honor that was with the person who could stay the latest in the office. And that's like, that's now kind of a joke in my mind. Like, it's kind of funny that we thought that was a thing, because the reality is you can be perfectly efficient at home or whatever space, and it's a purely individual thing. So again, I think there's so many learnings that we're going to take from this, and that we're just going to look back on and think that were ridiculous, like flying across the country, which I would do all the time for an hour meeting. Yeah. It's totally. Just there's such a loss that, you know, there's so much lost time, but I think now we can just use that energy in new ways, and this does force us to innovate faster than we ever have. Because what else are we going to do? We're going to, like, say, we've got time now. We've got that space, and we have the pressure, I think, of this industry. And to what Renato was saying earlier, I think diversity is going to be a huge part of this. But more importantly, it's inclusion, and how when we bring new kinds of talent into our agencies, how we make them feel and how we encourage them to thrive, because our industry is not built for it. Like, that's the reality. I'm like, as a woman of color, I will tell you firsthand, this industry was not built for me to be successful. And so it is my job now to ensure that we are creating environments that we are set up for success.
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, there's just so much opportunity, you know, amid all of this. You know, we've learned so much, and there's a lot of things that we can do to succeed in the future on all of these fronts. We've covered a lot of ground and talked about a lot of great things. So to put a fine point on it, for the folks who've tuned in, if there was one or two things that they should action on after they log out, what should that be? And I'll start with you, Renato.
Yeah, one thing that I say to all my creators all the time: be always in beta. What I mean by that is, in the past, creators, they were like this specialists. They are the kings of their kingdoms. They know all they know, and that's all they need to know. An art director is just an art director. Today, you're not an art director, you're not a copywriter, you're not a strategist, you're a bit of everything. You film, you edit, you understand music, you do animation, you do a little bit of everything. And when I say always in beta, I mean, go there, fail big, and restart, do over again. Because the new generation, the generation was created on TikTok and Instagram, they're masters of failure. They fail all the time. The first edits they did, all these influencers, it's crap, really bad. And they do not care. They move on, they move on, they move on, and they get better. And my generation in advertising is used to curation and perfection. And because we are about perfection, we lose the opportunity to really get embedded in the new social media way of doing advertising. So if there's an advice for you guys living this, is always in beta. Don't care. If you don't know how to do it, go there and learn how to do it, and do it enough times, you're going to learn how to do it and you're going to master it.
Terrific. Matt?
So I think there's two things. I mean, like, I think the big thing is, I think, just to piggyback on that point, is like sort of we can't be so precious about everything. Not everything is so precious. And so that we got to figure out what are those things that really need that time and investment to make great, and what are those things that you just need to get done quickly and efficiently and move on. And I think that we've all become much more cognizant of the time that we spend and the energy that we expend on things. And so I think that's something that everyone's kind of taken away. And I think the second thing is that we've all learned the importance of great lighting, especially that we've all become our own directors of photographers and cinematographers. And so, like, I've told everyone at the agency they had to buy a ring light. Like, it's a really big deal to have amazing lighting at all times, and I'm going to carry that around with me forever. I want this external light source without backlighting, but just sort of making me look 10 years younger at all times. I think it's a great thing.
I think, Thaz, were you going to go with the ring lighting too? If not, you can pick another one, or.
You know what? I live in sunny Los Angeles, so I am blessed by some light all the time. But I think one of the big things is I implore agency leaders and honestly everybody to make a decision during this time that kind of scares you. I think that this is such an amazing time of opportunity as well. It's an incredibly scary time. There's so many unknowns out there, but I think that you want to look back on these 9 months, 10 months, a year, and say, I did something that was actually a little bit scary, took me out of my comfort zone, as a person who runs an agency or is just doing their thing, and really again, use this as an opportunity and a window to try something completely different and completely new.
Great. And Alan?
I'd say reach out to the folks who supply you with the things that you're creating ads and things around. So if you're doing product shoots and stuff, reach out to the product people, understand what they do, how they build it, what they supply to you, understand their part of the chain, and then reach out to the folks who use the assets that you produce, so use the ads that you produce, so you understand where you fit within that overall business need, and you can get ideas from people who supply you with stuff and ideas from people that you supply things to, and just understand your value as part of that digital supply chain.
Great. Well, first I want to thank the panel. Thank you so much for taking the time out. This was great. I think everybody at home learned a thing or two, and I want to thank everybody who tuned in. I think that I definitely learned a few things here, and we're happy to share these insights with you. And thank you. Stay safe, everyone.